Okay, I just coughed. Not a great way to start the video. So, excuse me. Hey guys, Nate Willis here. Welcome back to another YouTube video. Sorry I'm recording this with a really poor quality webcam again. That's probably the reason why I look like I haven't showered in a month. It's because of the poor quality of this webcam. It just does that to my face for some reason. I assure you that I have showered recently, and also that's not the point of this video, so I don't know why I'm talking about that. So, today I'm talking about the new Citizen Soldier album. I'm very sorry. This is my second attempt at recording this, so I've been talking for a while. I should have brought some cough drops. Today I'm talking about the new Citizen Soldier album, This Is Your Sign Part 2. Now, if I'm being honest with you guys, this is my second time taking time to try to record this because when the album first came out, I gave it a listen and tried to do like a first impressions video, but I couldn't get any takes that I was happy with because when I first listened to this album, I didn't like it that much. I wanted to like it more than I did, but I did go ahead and give it a re-listen, and I decided to sit down and re-record this video, hoping that maybe this video won't be quite as negative because I'll admit I don't like part 2 of this album as much as I liked part 1. I liked part 1 more, but I still do think part 2 is pretty solid. Now, let's get into the main tracks that I did like, which were honestly pretty much every one of them, except for maybe Worst in Me. That one was a little too pop sounding for my liking. But even that track, it's still not a bad song. Keep in mind, it's just not really me. And don't let my opinion on that song alter your opinion. If you like it, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's good that you like it, actually. I think because I don't know, it means that you're making your own opinion. I guess I don't know. It means that you're not letting how I feel about it, I guess, alter how you feel about it. I don't know. I don't know where I'm trying to go with this, but yeah, I did find it interesting though that they had a second singer in that one. The lyric video for that song, I don't think it's been released yet, and as a result, I've got no idea who the singer is. I might be able to check. Actually, if I check the audio here and I check the description, no, there's no credits to anyone except for the copyright of Citizen Soldiers. So I've got no idea who the second singer is. If any of you know who it is, let me know in the comments. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. Excuse me, I apologize. I'm definitely going to go drink some water and use a cough drop after this. So, for those of you who remember my review, pseudo review, first impressions video of This Is Your Sign Part 1, you'd remember that I thought it was some of their best work yet, but I admitted that it wasn't my favorite album by them. That was Down the Rabbit Hole, and it still is Down the Rabbit Hole. That is still my favorite album by them. I still think This Is Your Sign Part 1 is their best album, but again, not my favorite. Just it's hard to explain. Go watch that video. Because the thing about this album, I don't feel like it was quite as strong as the first album. And don't get me wrong, there are some really solid songs in here, like Numb to Everything or Screaming in Silence. Irreplaceable is a really good one. I especially like the verses in that song. Wanted, You Are Not Your Past is a fun one. Waiting on the Sun, which is one of my favorite ballads by them now, I think. Um, it was nice to get to see Jake actually playing the piano in a music video now. That was kind of neat. I'd love to know what the actual filming process for that was like. Yeah, so I think all of the songs in this album, I liked all of them. Pretty much all of them except for Worst in Me. Which I didn't like as much as the other ones. I think I already said that. The same problems I had with part 1 are still here. If you guys remember, I didn't like the fact that Jake had auto-tune on his vocals in the previous album. Um, it's still present here. I'm much more used to it now. I don't notice it as much now. It is, it's not like, modern hip hop bad, where it's like they just can't sing at all. They sing in a really low monotone like this, and then correct it with auto tune. It's not like that. It's much more subtle. It is noticeable in some places, but there are also places where that was my computer going off. Ah, go away! I'm trying to record. Whatever. Um, uh, yeah, it is still present here. Generally, I don't really mind it that much anymore. There are some places where where I do mind it a little bit, like in some of Jake's higher notes, it's a little more noticeable. That's just how autotune works. But once you get used to it, you don't really notice it as much. You don't really mind it. In fact, it kind of works in some of the songs actually. Um, Obviously, being me, who I am, I'm automatically going to prefer the heavier songs. Um, Keep in mind that I do appreciate the ballads as well. Yeah, so all in all, like I said, I didn't like this album quite as much as part one. There are still plenty of good songs in here, but I'm not sure I'd listen to the album all the way through. I probably would, but maybe I would just skip a track or two. Which is interesting because with part one, I never found myself wanting to skip any of the tracks because I thought all of the tracks were pretty strong. Um, but yeah, the other main problem I had with part one was the lack of guitar solos. That is still in this album, at least in all the main tracks. There is like an extra like 13th hidden bonus track in the that you can get if you buy the CD version of the album. I don't have the CD version. I assume it's out by now. I assume. Um, I do have This Is Your Sign Part 1 on CD because I liked that album enough to get it on CD. I'm not sure if I'll get Part 2 on CD yet. And now that I realize it, I have. Excuse me. I have Part 1 on CD. This Is Your Sign Part 1. But I don't have Down the Rabbit Hole on CD, which is my favorite Citizen Soldier album. So I'm going to have to fix that after I'm done recording this video. But, yeah. So, all in all, I think some of the areas where this album shines the most is in its lyrics and, the vocals and stuff. And that's the interesting thing about This Is Your Sign, both parts of it, because it's more of a vocal focused record. It's not as much of a guitar or rock focused record as it is just a vocal focused record. And I would say that Citizen Soldier did achieve what they strived to do. And I think the thing you gotta understand about me is that I'm being a guitarist and also just someone who listens to a lot of heavy metal. As much as I do appreciate really good vocals and songs and really good lyrics and all that stuff, I pay a little more attention to the actual music in the song, a little more than I do the lyrics, because if any of you are like me and you listen to a lot of heavy metal, you would know that it's full of screaming, and generally you can't understand screaming. Excuse me. With most vocalists. And as a result, I find myself paying more attention to the actual music. Like if they're singing and I can't understand what they're saying, I pay more attention to the actual like melody that they're singing and the chords behind the melody and stuff like that. Or if maybe they're doing a screaming part and I can't understand what they're saying, I pay more attention to like the actual sound of the screaming and like the rhythm of the screaming and especially like the backing track that they're screaming over, the instruments going on behind the screaming. I'm really sorry, guys. And as a result, I'm more of a songwriting guy than I am a lyrics kind of guy. And I think that's the reason why I prefer Down the Rabbit Hole over these two albums, as much as I do like them. I really should have brought a cough drop. I'm not sick, I assure you, even though I probably sound or look like I am. This is just problems that I deal with all the time. You can ask in the comments if you really want to. That's not what this video is about, so I'm not really going to talk about it right now. But if you want to know, I guess you could ask in the comments. But yeah. And the thing about most of Citizen Soldier's fan base, and let me make it very clear, I'm not trying to throw Citizen Soldier's fans under the bus. That would not be right at all. And the thing is that I think, a lot of them are people who deal with mental illness. And since this band writes about mental illness, the main thing I've found that they like about the songs is having, lyrics that they can relate to that really, um, what's the word, that really speak to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Let me make that clear. That is one of Citizen Soldier's strengths, is that they can make really powerful lyrics that are, relatable, that can speak to you. I think part of the reason I don't identify with them as much is because I don't deal with as many of these problems, but and I guess also the fact that, like I said, I'm more of a music kind of guy. But it's understandable why I'm probably one of the only people who really cares about the lack of guitar solos and all that kind of shit. Yeah. Anyways, again, keep in mind, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not throwing Citizen Soldier's fans under the bus. If you like this album, that is great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally okay to like this album. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have your own taste in music. Don't let my opinion determine that, pretty much. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. But whether or not you will like this album, I think depends. If you're like me and you care more about the actual music, listen to something like Relentless or Down the Rabbit Hole. You might like it more. Especially if you're someone who really doesn't care for pop music. Um, Down the Rabbit Hole, in my opinion, strikes the perfect balance between rock and pop music. The most pop oriented song in there is Sacred. And even that song, it doesn't feel like a pop song. It feels like a rock song that happens to have pop elements in it. This Is Your Sign Part 1 is also the same, so I guess, if you're of the variety that I just mentioned, you probably like that album as well. But if you're someone who, you don't really care as much, like, you listen to maybe a little bit of everything, you don't care as much whether or not something sounds like rock or pop music, I think you might like part 2 quite a bit as well. For me personally, like I've already said, I didn't like it as much as the first part. And there are a couple songs in here that maybe I would skip. But all in all, it's still a pretty solid album. Now, what would I like to see um, in the next Citizen Soldier album? Like, what would be my ideal Citizen Soldier album? What do I want to see them change for their next one? Well, for one thing, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. I've already mentioned it a million times, so let me just get it over with. Bring back the guitar solos, but bring back the guitar solos. Another thing is that their earlier records, like Relentless or Down the Rabbit Hole, had more of a focus on having really good guitar work in them. Just listen to those two albums, you'll know what I'm talking about. A little more Down the Rabbit Hole, a little more Relentless than Down the Rabbit Hole. But listen to those two albums, you'll know what I'm talking about. While there's still plenty of good guitar work, and This Is Your Sign Parts 1 and 2, it kind of takes a back seat for the vocals. And what I would like to see is to have the really solid guitar work on the guitar solos come back, but also for them to keep the really solid, vocals and lyrics and melodies and all that stuff that they have now. Get the best of both worlds. That way you're not, you know, abandoning ship on either of them. Instead of choosing one or the other, just bring back the best of both worlds. That's the interesting thing, since I think they intentionally, maybe it wasn't intentional, maybe they just weren't really thinking about it, but most of the songs in these two albums don't need guitar solos, right? But there are some that feel like they could have really benefited from them, like You Are Not Your Past, which is, don't get me wrong, really fun song. But then, instead of like a bridge or anything like that, it has this weird pseudo breakdown thing with some kind of neat vocal effects going on, and then it just kind of goes back to the chorus. I feel like they could have maybe just threw in a solo or just a bridge or something in there to make that part of the song feel a little less like filler. You know what I'm saying? And I know I'm being kind of nitpicky here. I'm just trying to kind of explain what I mean, because in the song, like I said, most of the songs don't need solos. They make up for the lack of solos or breakdowns or whatever by having well written like bridges and stuff. But there are some songs that don't make up for that. So what I would do is, if in the songs that maybe do need them, put them in there, and in the songs that don't have solos. You know what I'm saying? So, in any of the songs that might need them, put a solo there. If the song doesn't need one, just leave it. You know what I'm saying? Um, or just don't bother with solos at all. I would prefer if they brought them back, but maybe they won't. At the end of the day, it is up to them. It's their band. So yeah, that's the main thing I'd like to see, is just bring back the solos and bring back the really solid guitar work, but keep the really good vocals and lyrics and stuff. Have the best of both worlds. um, the second thing is I would experiment a little more with song structures. All of these songs they're all about the same length. About 3 to 3.5 minutes long for the most part. Um, and I'd like to see them maybe, try writing longer songs occasionally, but also just kind of mess around a little more with song structures. Keep the choruses and everything, right? But instead of just doing, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, which is the structure of pretty much every one of the songs on this album, maybe, do that for the most part, but occasionally mix it up a little. Do like a verse, then a chorus, then a verse, then a bridge, and then like, I don't know, a short instrumental break, and then a chorus, and then another bridge, maybe another instrumental section, and then a chorus, just to kind of mix it up. Don't have each song have the same verse, chorus, bridge, chorus structure. Change it up a little bit every now and then. Um, and lastly, one thing I would definitely like to see them try at some point is doing a full blown concept album. Um, I would really like to see what Jake would be able to do to that. Maybe they could find some way to tie it back into mental illness, which is what they mostly write about. It could be a lot of symbolic stuff. I got no idea. I just think it would be kind of cool. Um, but yeah, all in all, I would recommend checking out this album at least once, and then get your own opinion on it afterwards. Just decide for yourself. But for me personally, like I said, I didn't like it as much as part one. Still, it's still a good album. Excuse me, but I just didn't quite like it as much as part one. Excuse me. All that out of the way, I'm gonna head out now and go drink some water, um, and probably use some cough drops because my throat needs them. One thing I do want to mention though is that I plan on probably actually doing some Citizen Soldier covers. I'm definitely going to cover some of the songs from Down the Rabbit Hole at some point, but there are also a couple of songs from This Is Your Sign Part 1, maybe even a couple from Part 2 that I'd like to cover. And one thing I would like to know, Citizen Soldier, if any of your members happen to be watching this, is if you guys happen to have anywhere where you release guitar tabs for your songs or anything. I'd like to try and learn some of them so I could cover them. And all that out of the way, I hope you guys somehow managed to enjoy. Oh my god! I hope you guys somehow managed to enjoy this disjointed as hell video full of disjointed thoughts. I think it was at least more positive than my previous attempt. I gave the album a second listen and I appreciate it a lot more now. And if any of you watching this happen to be dealing with any of the problems that any of these songs talk about, just know that you are not worthless. you are worth something. Just because you have some mental problems does not mean, it does not determine your worth. And just know that eventually things will get better. Things will fall into place for you. It just might take a while. And if any of you need to talk to me about anything, I can't promise that, at the very least I can listen, I can't promise that I can do the best job of helping anyone feel better because I'm not great at that. So bleh. I'm not great at making people feel better with, words and stuff, but I can at least try my best. All that out of the way, peace out.